On Politics Live today, David Frost, Brexit negotiator extraordinaire, graced us with his presence. And inevitably, it came around to talking about growth or the lack of. And the Labour MP, Rachel Taylor, was suitably stymied by the question and stumbled over her words, trying to explain why there's no growth. We know why there's no growth. It's because of Brexit. It's also because of the fact that this new Labour government has made disastrous decisions in the last budget by introducing the national insurance hike for employers and also by introducing inheritance tax for small businesses and for farms, which has had a detrimental impact on investment in particular, and that is causing growth to stall. But David Frost in particular was playing a juggling act in trying to say that Brexit has been good for growth, but then also admitting that there is no growth, which is totally ludicrous. And it was indeed Munira Wilson from the Liberal Democrat Party who was free to be honest about the impact of both Brexit and the Labour budget on our growth and what needs to be done about it.
And growth is, is not as fast as we would like it to be.
No, it's barely there.
But that is to do with factors that are some outside our control. So we've got a huge problem across the world, and Keir Starmer is hoping to sort that and is working well with European leaders and with...
So the world's changed.
The world is always changing. You have to run an economic policy that is resilient to changes in the world, and most of Trump's tariffs have not even come in yet. We know what it takes to run an economy. Keir Starmer's running this economy like sort of he's learning it on the job, like he's trying to assemble some complex IKEA piece of furniture.
Well, what would you do differently at this point?
And doing it badly.
What would you do differently at this point? I mean, arguably, Brexit was the issue that led to far more civil servants being needed and far more bureaucracy and far more regulation.
I would question that.
Yes.
We would certainly some things were done in Brussels that we now need to do for ourselves, but that's a tiny number. The problem the government has got into is extra regulation. This week we're considering in the Lords the employment law bill that's going to massively increase the bureaucracy and costs that employers face. Hiring is falling. Jobs are falling, the economy is not growing. That's what's going wrong.
Munira, do you agree with David Frost on that?
No, absolutely not. And we know that Brexit has massively hurt our economy. And if actually everybody wants growth, the quickest way we can start kickstarting growth is by negotiating a far better deal with our European friends and neighbours at a time of great economic insecurity, as well as clearly we're going to get on to talking about defence shortly. We need to be improving that relationship. We need to be negotiating a deal on a customs union deal so that we can cut the red tape that David is so desperate to cut. When I talk to businesses in my own constituency, I've got a brilliant British startup freight company that is spending £250,000 flying its jets to other countries because it can't service them in this country because of the bureaucracy that's been caused as a result of Brexit.
David?
We need and the other thing we need to do to kickstart growth is to reverse the jobs tax. If I talk to small businesses in my constituency, that's really...
I'll come to Rachel with that in a minute, but what about Munira's point about the EU? A much closer relationship is what we need.
Anybody can come up with anecdotes about extra paperwork. The important thing is to look at the macro picture, what's happening to the economy, and despite all the punishment the economy has been taking over the last couple of years, it is still growing faster than the French and the Germans and the Eurozone.
David, it's not
so last time I looked, they were not in. They have not left the European Union. They're still in the European Union. They're growing slower than us. How is Brexit anything to do with that?
We know that our exports to the European Union are down by 27 billion. We know that 4 out of 10 British goods that were on European shelves before Brexit are not there anymore. How is that anecdote? That is cold, hard fact that your hard Brexit is damaging our economy. And if Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are serious about growth, they will renegotiate a deal with the European Union that cuts that red tape and starts to get money into our economy so that we can invest in our public services that your Conservative government left on its knees.
I'm seeing exactly the same thing as Munira in my constituency.
So why aren't you negotiating a much closer deal then?
That question was ignored by Rachel Taylor, but ultimately we know why they're not negotiating a closer deal with the EU, because they're intent on trying to get a deal with America to avoid tariffs with Donald Trump. And the mad thing about prioritising America over Europe is that in 2023, exports from the UK to Europe were valued at 356 billion, accounting for 42% of all our exports. And the UK exports in the same period to the United States was approximately 60.4 billion of goods, accounting for only 15.3% of exports. It makes no sense that they're prioritising America over Europe.
Small businesses have suffered since Brexit. Where I'm based, we supply a lot of the motor manufacturing industry. Our freight and logistics sector is struggling since Brexit, and all the extra regulation. But it's basically that we're not able to export the same as we were to the EU.
Well, David, you want to respond to both those?
There's many things going on in the economy. If you're going to have an argument about Brexit, you need to try and distinguish between countries that left the European Union and those that didn't, and show that slow growth is a result of that. If we are growing faster than our big comparative EU countries, then I don't see how Brexit can be the problem. There's much else going on in the economy.
David Frost claiming that the only way to work out the economic damage of Brexit is to compare it with another country that's left the EU is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. Obviously, the UK is the only country stupid enough to leave the EU, and study after study has shown how disastrous it has been and continues to be for our economy and for many other things, particularly our food supply, as I've explained endlessly to you on this channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe and comment below. Let me know what you think.